If holding Bitcoin was easy, every single person on earth would have some Bitcoin, but holding Bitcoin is not easy. It's actually one of the most difficult things that you'll ever do. And in this video, I want to explain to you what exactly I mean by this. Let's get started. Here is Bitcoin's price. We can see here that over time, the price fluctuates up, down, up, down. It keeps going up and down. And when you look back, it seems like it's very easy to go through this volatility and keep holding. You might be thinking that the people who bought in 2011, 2012 are so lucky because they got to buy around $10, $20, $100. But think about how difficult it must have been to see your Bitcoin rise in price up here. Let's say you buy at 50 bucks, it rises up to 258, then it crashes. Then it rises up again, then it crashes. I think the majority of people would just go absolutely nuts and they would just think the next time it pumps, I'm going to sell, because back here, there was nearly no information available for, let's say, people who wanted to buy some or they wanted to sell some. There was no knowledge really available other than maybe very niche groups of people who are talking about Bitcoin. Right now, you can watch so many different YouTube videos. I personally have like 400 videos available. There are people out there who have thousands of videos available. So you can learn about Bitcoin. You can hold on. You can basically just calm your emotions. You can get knowledge from other people who are going through the same thing as you, and you can hold on. And now let's go back to the people who bought back here. They buy here, they see it pump, then it drops. Then it doesn't do anything for another 2-3 years. Then it pumps again, and then it drops. You can see that here. Went all the way up to $19,000. Then it drops to $3,000. Then it pumps again to 13,000. How many people who bought back here would be thinking, I bought 10,000 Bitcoin for, let's say, $50,000, $100,000. Now it's worth a house or a car or a mansion or something that they wanted to do, a vacation. And then it drops again. If I'm being honest with you, I think this is going to be one of the most difficult things that you're going to go through, because you're going to see all the things that you could have had. You're going to think about all the luxuries that you could have bought. You're going to think about the house that you missed out on because you wanted to hold on to Bitcoin and then the price falls. So let's say, for example, it goes up to 110 here. People bought here. Some of them sold here. Some of them sold down here at 75K. They bought here and they sold. I know people who did this. They messaged me. I got DMs. People are so scared because they buy at the top, then they sell at the bottom. It's easy to buy at the top because that's when everybody has euphoria. Everybody's telling you Bitcoin's price is going to go higher. It's going to go to $1 million, $10 million, $100 million. By the end of 2030, it's going to all these prices. So it's easy to buy at the top. But getting through this volatility, that's the hard part. Getting through the dip, that's the most difficult part, because you put your hard-earned money in here. You worked. You spent hours at your job earning some money. You put your money in here, and now suddenly, within 3-4 months, the value that you put into your work is worth 25% less. That's extremely difficult and traumatizing for a lot of people to go through. So think about all the people who bought back here. How many times did they go through that? They went through that multiple times, over and over again. They're probably losing tens of millions of dollars from the top to the bottom, hundreds of millions of dollars. For example, there's a guy named Max Kaiser. He has reportedly thousands of Bitcoin. I don't know how much, but let's say he has 10,000 Bitcoin. From the top to the bottom here, he would have lost $250 million of his net worth if he has 10,000. If he has 100,000, and keep in mind that there are people who had 100,000 Bitcoin back here. They bought 100,000 Bitcoin for 50, 100, $5, $10, $15, whatever the amount was, but they bought 100,000 Bitcoin. And for whatever reason, they held all the way up here and then they see it drop. They lose $2.5 billion within months. 2.5 billion with a B. And my point here is that holding Bitcoin is extremely difficult. Don't let anybody ever tell you that you got lucky. It was easy. It was free money for you. Don't let anybody ever tell you that. There's a reason why there are so many different acronyms when it comes to Bitcoin. So for example, this one here, HODL, hold on for dear life. It means to buy and hold a cryptocurrency for the long term, even during market fluctuations. It's a strategy where investors resist the urge to sell, believing the asset's value will increase in the future. The term originated as a typo of hold in a 2013 Bitcoin forum post and later gained popularity. So when people tell you, you got to HODL, you got to hold on for dear life, this is what they're trying to tell you. One of the reasons why people came up with this phrase is because of this volatility. We see the price go up then it comes down, then it goes up, then it comes down. It's going to keep doing that for a very, very long time. You have to get used to the volatility because if you don't, then you're never going to be able to hold your Bitcoin. Today, zero point 0.1 Bitcoin is worth about $9,400. At some point, maybe it drops, goes down 30%. So now worth $6,500. Then it goes back up. Let's say Bitcoin goes to $150,000 and your zero point 0.1 Bitcoin is now worth $15,000. If you bought at $9,500, you now have a $5,500 profit, meaning you could sell your Bitcoin and you can buy whatever you want to. Let's say you want to get a new pair of sunglasses. Let's say you want to get a new phone. You want to upgrade your computer. You could sell your Bitcoin, but you won't because you know that the value will increase even more. At some point, of course, you do have to sell your Bitcoin because Bitcoin in and of itself has no value because it's just money. Money needs to be exchanged for goods and services. You use money to buy utility. But in the meantime, you have to go through this volatility. You have to go through this time where Bitcoin's price is not stable at all. Bitcoin's price is not stable. We can see that here. The price has gone from 108,000 to $75,000 from, you can see here, January of 2025 to April of 2025. Within 2.5 months, the price fell over 30%. The majority of people can't go through this. They can't handle the volatility. Going through one of these drops, especially if you watch the market closely, is extremely difficult because it makes you think about all of the things that you missed out on. For example, when your zero point 0.1 Bitcoin was worth $15,000, you could have bought all of these things that you had listed, but now Bitcoin's price has fallen and you can only buy a fraction of the things that you could buy at the top. I found this really cool website that shows you different things that you could have bought instead of buying Bitcoin and how much those things would be worth today. So, for example, if you bought an iPhone 6, the original price was $199.99. The release date was September 19th, 2014. 2.17 Bitcoin would be worth $204,000. So you lost $204,000 because you bought an iPhone 6. I pressed this button here and it gave me something else. So we can see here a Paul Pierce Nets jersey would be worth $242,000 today, 2.57 Bitcoin. This was $70 on June 12th of 2011. Now let's press the button again. You see here if you bought AirPods, those AirPods would be worth $2,555. At the time, they were 0.03 Bitcoin, $249 on October 30th of 2019. Let's try another one here. If you bought Bitcoin instead of Toy Story 3, you'd have $20,760,330. So at the time, on June 18th of 2010, it was worth 219.8 Bitcoin. Now let's press the button again here. If you bought Bitcoin instead of a Tony Robbins seminar, you'd have $297,000. At the time, it cost 3.15 Bitcoin. I don't know if this one's that big of a loss because this is education. You do have to pay for education. People have made hundreds of thousands of dollars from going to his seminars, from applying the skills that they learn. I don't personally know if his information is that great, but I've seen people talking about him in the past. Now let's hit the button one last time, and you can just do this on your own. I'll link it in the description below, but let's hit it one more time. If you bought Bitcoin instead of a Casper mattress, you'd have $171,898 or 1.82 Bitcoin. This is from April 1st of 2014. At the time, the mattress was $850. Now, keep in mind that I'm not telling you that you have to get rid of everything. You don't buy groceries, you don't buy a house, you don't buy a car, you don't have a standard of living just because you want more Bitcoin. I'm not saying that, of course. I think you should spend money on yourself. You should buy things. Even if you bought the ear pods, they were worth 0.03 Bitcoin at the time. I don't really care. Doesn't really matter because you have to have headphones. Maybe those headphones have lasted you until today. Maybe they've made your life a lot easier. You have to exchange your money for utility. You can't use Bitcoin to listen to music. Of course, you could get cheaper headphones instead of buying $250 headphones. Maybe you could buy $25 headphones or $50 headphones or even $100 headphones. Then you put the rest of that money into Bitcoin. I do think at some point you're going to have to sell your Bitcoin. You're going to have to exchange your Bitcoin. Unless you can keep creating more and more value forever, eventually you're going to have to use your savings to buy the things that you need in your day-to-day life. So while it's very difficult to hold Bitcoin, some people just take it way too far because to them it's just too easy. They see that Bitcoin is going up, so it's just logical. Keep holding. Keep holding. Don't sell. Just hold forever because Bitcoin's price is going to go up forever. Just as an example, I came across a post on Reddit that shows you the results of people not wanting to sell their Bitcoin, even to support their family, to do the things that their family wants, to enjoy their lives. My significant other is sitting on a massive amount of Bitcoin and it is causing some strain in our relationship. My then boyfriend, now husband, invested a decent amount in Bitcoin back in, I think, 2011 or 2012. I don't know what the exact number or value is today since he won't tell me. But doing some rough calculations, I believe it's conservatively $3 to $5 million, likely a lot more at current rates. This was 4 years ago. Great, you may think. And in a lot of ways, it is. The problem from my perspective is that he is also a true believer in Bitcoin. That means he genuinely believes that the global monetary system will collapse soon and crypto or Bitcoin will be used by everyone for every transaction and every investment. He intends to hold, in quotes, forever. The faintest suggestion to sell, even a tiny fraction of the holding, results in an immediate no and a complete shutdown of the conversation. Now, I completely understand that these are his views to have and his investment to begin with. However, this is a literal life changing amount of money. We both have decent jobs, but aren't otherwise rich by any means. We have been together for a long time and are now planning to have a kid. I am the one who generally handles our finances and investments, and I'd like to have a clear idea of where we are headed. Can we move to a better neighborhood, buy a house, etc.? Are questions I like to think about, and it is impossible to do so when our basic finances are such a big black hole. I really have no idea what I can or should do about this situation. In a situation like this, I don't know if it makes sense to keep just holding your Bitcoin because you want to progress with your life. If you're renting and your wife wants to buy a house and you have a ton of Bitcoin and it's only going to cost you a small amount of your stack to buy that house, maybe it would make sense to buy that house. But I can see his side as well, that $3 to $5 million, let's say it's a little bit more, let's say it's $7 million. That $7 million is eventually going to be $15 million, then it's going to be $20 million. Shutting down when your significant other wants to have a conversation is not the right solution. It's great that he bought back here, and we know how difficult it was for him to hold all the way until where it was back then. So 2021 or so back here. It was so difficult for him to hold through this. And who knows, maybe they go through a divorce because of that situation. There's no updates or anything like that. But now think, they could have bought the house here and then the price drops 80%. If he's a true believer, of course, he knows that the price is going to go back up. But who knows, what if his wife is not a true believer? What if she sees this as a lost opportunity to progress with their lives, to go forward with having a family, building a family? You may have to sell some of your Bitcoin to do those things. Keep in mind that selling Bitcoin for dollars to just hold on to dollars because you think Bitcoin's price is going to go lower is completely different from somebody using their Bitcoin in an actual transaction or spending it on the things that they need. In this case, of course, we don't know what their situation is like. A lot of Bitcoiners, including myself, wouldn't want to sell their Bitcoin to buy a house. If you bought Bitcoin in 2011 or 2012, maybe it's worth it for you to buy a house with that Bitcoin because the value of that Bitcoin has increased so much. I think it's important to find the right balance between spending and holding. If you just spend everything today, you're not going to have anything to rely on in the future. But if you save everything today and you never spend, then maybe you're going to regret it in the future because you don't know how long you have on earth. You could die tomorrow for all we know. You could have this 5, 10, $15 million worth of Bitcoin, but then if you can't spend it, then what's the point? And then on top of this, Bitcoin is one of those things where if your spouse doesn't have your private keys, then maybe she never will be able to access your Bitcoin just because you passed away with the private keys and you didn't teach her how to use the Bitcoin, how to get to it. These are all things to consider. So while you're alive, maybe it would be smart to sell some of your Bitcoin to enjoy the present. I think that's very important to consider, and I think a lot of people are forgetting about this. Now, keep in mind that instead of spending your Bitcoin, you can also focus on increasing your income. In this situation, we can see that they both have decent jobs, but if you have $3 to $5 million, you should be working on maybe creating a business so you don't have to go to work. Maybe your wife doesn't even like the job anymore. So we have two extremes here. We have people who hodl forever, people who don't want to sell for anything, they don't care what's happening in their life. They think that the price is going to go up, so they'll just hold for as long as they can. Then we have other people who see Bitcoin's price go up and they think, I'm going to sell. I'm going to get rid of what I have. I'm going to use it to sustain my lifestyle. They sell their entire stack and then they don't have anything left. In the first situation, let's say you hold on to your Bitcoin, price goes up, does what we think it will. It goes to millions of dollars. But what happens if you get a divorce? What happens if your spouse doesn't want to be with you anymore because you're more focused on your Bitcoin than you are on them? Of course, we don't know all the details here. I'm just speculating what could be happening. Somebody has to be in a pretty desperate situation to make a post like this. Maybe this has been really bothering her. So, in that first option, you could have millions or even tens of millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin, but is it worth losing the love of your life, your spouse, your wife, your husband? In that second situation, people will sell all of their Bitcoin and they will buy whatever they want to. I know people in my personal life who sold their Bitcoin and they bought, let's say, a house, a condo. At the time, it seemed pretty smart because Bitcoin's price went from 60K all the way down to 15K. But then they didn't buy back because they thought the price would go even lower. Now it's at 94K and they still haven't bought back. So in these two extremes, you die with your Bitcoin or you die with material things. Which one would you prefer? I would personally prefer a balance. I think it's important to enjoy your life today, go on that vacation, buy the house, buy the car, but also increase your income so you can buy more Bitcoin. Some people want to retire, but then they don't want to spend their Bitcoin either. So what's the point of not working and then not spending your Bitcoin and enjoying your life? Depending on how long you've been holding Bitcoin for, you're probably going through this yourself. So in your personal situation, find that balance. Depending on how long you hold Bitcoin for, you may want to sell at some point to maybe go on vacation or maybe buy a house. If you're in a relationship, you have to look at what your partner wants as well. So it's important to find that balance based on what your partner needs. But if you're single, you have full control of whatever you do with your Bitcoin. It doesn't really matter. If you have somebody to pass it on to later on, of course, that's great. But you may also want to spend your Bitcoin while you're alive because if you pass away, then nobody gets that Bitcoin. That Bitcoin is just gone. Find the right balance. Don't just stick to holding onto your Bitcoin forever. Don't just hodl, 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 and never spend. But then don't just spend everything. Don't just sell everything to buy the material things that you want today. I think it's so important to find that balance. And most Bitcoiners haven't found that balance. I think it comes with experience. When you go through multiple cycles, you see the price rising and falling because you've been around Bitcoin for so long and you kind of realize that Bitcoin's price is going to continue to do this. Maybe it's okay to sell some of your Bitcoin and enjoy your life today because your time on earth isn't guaranteed.